The Jimmy Timmy Power Hour premiered 20 years ago in 2004, and it's taking all the power in me not to freak out at how quickly time is going by. I was thinking about this special recently and realized JTPH is one of the only shows to do a true crossover in a sense that Timmy is in Jimmy's world and vice versa. So I decided it was time to relive the glory days and see if Jimmy Timmy Power Hour is the one true crossover. Let's get it. The movie starts in Dimsdale and Timmy Turner is in class getting ready for the science fair. Everyone's showing off their projects and everyone's got something lit to show off. Seeing all the projects, Timmy gets extremely upset that he never finished his project. He never even started it, to be fair. Timmy sneaks out of class and Crocker follows him. He knows Crocker's onto him, so he tells his fairies to leave so they don't get caught, and they give him an auto poofer so that he can poof back to his bedroom at any time. He then wishes to be at the best lab in Dimsdale, and he ends up being at AJ's lab. Timmy realizes he can't steal any of these projects because AJ would recognize it as his own science. So he poofs home and asks his fairies to send him to the best lab in the entire universe. Cut to Jimmy Neutron upgrading Goddard against his will, and Timmy poofs in. Jimmy doesn't even notice Timmy poofing in, and Timmy ignores Jimmy entirely and just starts going through his shit. Jimmy catches Timmy in the stupid hat and gets pissed. He presses Timmy, asking him how he got in the lab, and Timmy says it's his lab now, and he just keeps going through all of Jimmy's shit. Timmy gets sucked into a bottomless cube, and Jimmy accidentally poofs himself to Timmy's bedroom using the poofer from Cosmo and Wanda. Timmy pops out of the cube and couldn't care less that Jimmy is gone and keeps going through his lab. We then get a really cool intro with both theme songs fighting for the spotlight. I always remember this as a kid and I always loved it. Timmy's still going through the lab, fucking with everything he can find, and nothing seems to impress him. Even the cheese gun? Come on, Timmy. A cheese gun? Timmy notices Goddard and thinks it's a dog video game system, and then tries to install his copy of Decimator Crush the Planet into Goddard. What the hell? Timmy gets distracted waiting for the update and notices that his poofer is gone. Sheen and Carl show up and Timmy is pissed. Sheen thinks Timmy is just Jimmy after an experiment gone wrong. Who can blame him? He says they can only hang out with him if they show him how to use all of Jimmy's inventions. Carl, Sheen, and Timmy then start messing around with all the inventions that Jimmy would never let them touch, and I love the reference to the Jimmy Neutron movie with the giant bubble Sheen is in. Jimmy's mom comes out back and doesn't believe that Timmy is not Jimmy. They end up hypnotizing Jimmy's mom, and Timmy forces her to believe that she's Mighty Mom, a dust-fighting superhero. Carl says that maybe they should be careful, but Timmy says bullshit to that and rides off on a hoverboard. Meanwhile, Goddard is halfway done updating and things are not looking good for him. Timmy crashes into Sydney and Libby, and they're the first people who could tell that he is not actually Jimmy. Sydney tells Timmy how to ride the hoverboard, and he asks her for help on the science project, and they walk off holding hands. It's that easy. Meanwhile, Goddard finishes updating, and he's ripped and ready to kill, and his first target is Jimmy's dad. He moves in and tells him that his future is canceled. Cut to Jimmy freaking out about being 2D. He's worried about getting home to take care of Goddard and finish the update. He's trying to find a manual for the poofer to get home, but only finds useless shit like comic books. Cosmo and Wanda poof in and freak out at Jimmy and his swirly, fudgy hair. Jimmy thinks they're just holograms, and they just let him believe it because no one else can know that Timmy has fairies. Timmy's dad busts in and tells Jimmy it's time to go to the science fair. He doesn't believe that Jimmy is not Timmy and then pays Vicky to force Jimmy to go to school. He's literally a terrible dad. He should just take Timmy to school himself. Timmy's fairies can't help Jimmy get home because they can only grant wishes for Timmy. Meanwhile, Jimmy hopes that one of the science fair projects can help him get home. No one in class actually believes that he's Jimmy and they all just think he's Timmy. They're all dumb as hell. Jimmy gets his first F in his entire life, then Timmy's bully tries to beat him, but he can't get past his hair. What a dummy. Jimmy shows off the poofer, saying Timmy is a genius for making this invention, then poofs himself back to Timmy's bedroom. Crocker freaks out and knows for a fact that Fairly Odd Parents made that device and sets out to get the poofer. Jimmy is confused why the poofer only takes him back to Timmy's bedroom and nowhere else, so he finds a Game Buddy on the floor and combines it with with the poofer to be able to travel to any universe he pleases. But just before Jimmy can poof anywhere, Crocker busts into Timmy's home, that is a home invasion, snatches the poofer, then takes them all to Fairy World. Jimmy is confused why everyone is upset about what just happened. He doesn't think any of this is real and that the fairies and the entire world is just a computer simulation. Cut to Timmy at the candy bar with Sydney. She's trying to convince herself that Timmy is actually a genius and he's trying to keep up with the act. Jimmy's friends bust in to ask Timmy to help save Jimmy's dad from ripped Goddard. But Timmy's just excited that Goddard is finished updating and watches and smiles as Jimmy's dad is almost getting murdered. Timmy then reveals that every time Goddard kills, he'll get bigger and stronger. Timmy then fucks off with Sydney and leaves Jimmy's dad to die. Goddard runs off to kill some more people in the city, and Sheen, Carl, and Libby go after him. Meanwhile, Timmy is turning a squirrel into a bat, and Sydney teaches him how to use this weird remote thing that merges creatures. Sydney then asks Timmy to use a mind phone on him to hear his deepest, most personal thoughts. During all this, the ice cream man crashes his car, and Goddard counts that as a kill for some reason and levels up, and now he's basically unstoppable. He targets Jimmy's friends and they flee for their lives. Sydney puts the mind phone next to Timmy's head, and he's actually thinking about celebrity steel cage monkey boxing, and I need to see that show right now. Sydney then says she wouldn't actually like Timmy if he wasn't smart, and then Jimmy's friends interrupt them and beg for help. Goddard shows up and burns them all alive, and then they flee some more. Timmy wants to get back home to ask his fairies for help and tries to find his poofer, but while he's trying to find it, Goddard bends down and fucking eats him. Timmy is in Goddard's body, breathing in toxic fumes, and Sydney starts talking to him over a radio that's in the mini laser. Sydney tells him to use the laser to cut the rail he's hanging on, and he does it and makes it safely into a vent. Sydney then tries to guide Timmy to Goddard's power core to shut him down. Meanwhile, Goddard is trying to destroy the soda factory, which will absolutely drown the town in soda and everyone will die. Sydney tells Timmy to try to have a brain blast to save them all, but he simply can't do it. Sydney then tells him to pull the red switch in the terminal box to shut down Goddard, but the box is locked shut and the laser is dead. So he uses his teeth to bite through the metal lock and shut down Goddard just before he drowns the entire town in soda. Timmy, I'd love to see your dentist bill after that. Sydney reconnects with the crew to celebrate, and she's convinced that Timmy was just pretending not to know what to do, so Sydney would get a chance to solve the problem herself, and then she kisses him. Timmy's got that riz. Goddard shrinks back to normal and shows a feed of Jimmy calling in, and Jimmy's friends are so upset that Timmy isn't actually Jimmy. Timmy tells Jimmy that Crocker sucked all of them into a computer simulation, then reveals they're in Fairy World. Jimmy really thinks Fairy World is a computer world. It's crazy. Crocker decides he wants to take the VIP tour and uses the poofer to get on the VIP bus. Jimmy is refusing to help because he doesn't believe any of this is real, and Timmy is rightfully pissed. Jimmy then hangs up on Timmy. During the VIP tour, Crocker learns about the fairy armory with God-powered fairy weapons, and then learns if he takes down the giant wand that everyone in Fairy World will lose magic and be defenseless. He then poofs himself inside the armory and loots up. Jimmy realizes that Crocker left with the poofer, and he's actually pissed off, and his only motivation to stop Crocker is so he could get the poofer and go back home. Meanwhile, Crocker knocks over the giant wand with ease, and everything goes gray. Jimmy and the fairies use their last amount of magic to poof to Crocker, and Jimmy builds a magnet to pull the poofer out of Crocker's hands. Crocker is turning Fairy World into Crocker World, and I think he's lost the plot. He just wanted to prove fairies exist, and now he's trying to rule them. Jimmy is about to take the poofer and ditch Cosmo and Wanda because they're just computer simulations, so it doesn't matter what happens to them. Timmy calls Jimmy, and they argue about the fairies being real or not real. Jimmy keeps saying it's all a computer game and they're just holograms, and doesn't get why Timmy cares about them. Timmy then points out that Goddard himself is just a computer and that Jimmy really cares about him, and that seems to get through to him a little bit. He uses the poofer to go to the science fair and find anything useful, and starts to build his own device to save the day, and ends up making a giant robot fighting suit, which is fucking dope. Crocker is storming the fairy capital building, and Jimmy is in there waiting for him with the suit. They beef it out for a bit, and Crocker is fighting with magic, and Jimmy's machine is simply no match. Crocker almost instantly disarms Jimmy, then tries to murder him on the spot, but it turns out it was just a Jimmy robot being piloted by Cosmo and Wanda. Still an attempted murder. During all this, Jimmy was actually fixing the giant wand the entire time, and he figures out it just simply wasn't plugged in. Crocker keeps trying to murder Jimmy, but he makes it to the plug in time and restores the giant wand, giving magic back to Fairy World. Even after the big wand is restored, Crocker keeps trying to murder everyone, but Jimmy grabs a wand and sends Crocker through a bodily terror journey until he surrenders. Jimmy still thinks this is all just a simulation and doesn't understand what he just did to Crocker. Jorgen then shows up as a dog and starts mauling Crocker so hard that his memory becomes wiped. Timmy calls Jimmy through the poofing device and makes the wish that they're both back in their hometowns. Jimmy is confused what wishing will do for them, and then Jimmy and Timmy finally meet in a crazy universal gap. They share a touching moment where they understand each other as they change back to their universes. Sydney pops into the portal one last time to ask Timmy to wait for her. Wait for when? She's gonna be in a different universe her whole life. What does she mean? And they say goodbye. Cut to the science fair, and Crocker has PTSD, so the principal has to host it instead. And Timmy is still upset because he still didn't finish a project. Jimmy figured out interdimensional gifting and sends Goddard in to Timmy's universe so he could use him as a project. Timmy gets an A and first prize in the science fair, and the movie comes to a close and the credits start to roll. So after the hour has been powered, I definitely do still like JTPH. It's charming seeing these two worlds collide, and Jimmy and Timmy have good chemistry when they're together. And I'm hard pressed to find another crossover that actually has the characters switching universes. It's definitely worth a watch if you're down for the vibe. Alright, thanks for listening.